Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we are joined by the founder of Brand of a Leader, Marina Byezhanova. Marina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for not butchering my last name. That does not always happen. So thank you.
Good. I was just going to ask if I got that right. Fantastic. Well, before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Cyberlinks is a complete technology solution provider that ensures your business not only has the most reliable and professional IT service, but also has the right cybersecurity solution to ensure your business stays productive and safe. And now, back to our show. Marina, thanks for coming on. I really love what you're doing there. And for those that aren't familiar, can you give us a little kind of the elevator pitch of Brand of a Leader?
I'm a co-founder of Brand of a Leader, which is a personal branding agency. No, we do not work with Instagram influencers. We work with thought leaders, specifically business owners and CEOs, Gen X business owners and CEOs. And we help them build their personal brands, really rooted in thought leadership. Our purpose is expressed as we help people realize their greatness and express it.
I love that. So now when you say thought leadership, we hear that word a lot. What exactly does that mean to you, and how do you apply that?
So thought leadership is really being an expert in a field, in a topic, and really being an expert, because you're right, Matt, it's a term that's been used quite frivolously lately, and we're approaching it as, talking on a topic equates to thought leadership. It doesn't. So one of the biggest values that we provide to clients is we constantly work with them on deepening their thought leadership and helping them unearth what that thought leadership that they have within them really is. But it's really being an expert in whatever domain or area you're focusing on. Not only a vertical, right? Because for a lot of business leaders, business owners, they have subject matter experts within the organizations. They're not a subject matter expert, but they might be a thought leader in building and scaling businesses and building winning cultures. So the topics can vary.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what's an example of this? Let's just take an IT company, for instance, right? There you are. What would that look like when let's say I come to your company, I'm like, hey, I'd like to build my brand. What's that look like? I think that's a little confusing for a lot of people, is building your brand. What's that entail? How do you even go about something like that?
Yeah, it's confusing to a lot of people, and it also sounds narcissistic to a lot of people. A lot of people are put off by the actual lingo. I am building my personal brand. That sounds like it's rooted in, either in the desire to become an influencer, which is nothing wrong with that, but that's not what most business leaders are looking to associate themselves with, or just feels like it's an exercise in narcissism or, me. And a lot of people who come to us, they have the concern of, we work with a lot of introverts, or also we work with a lot of leaders who say, I don't want the spotlight. I don't look for attention. I like being behind my business and supporting the business that way, which I have tremendous respect for, but thought leadership has become the new marketing currency. Companies that are not investing in thought leadership of their leaders, they're falling behind organizations in their industries that are. In the same way, Matt, as 15, 20 years ago, a lot of organizations were not investing in social media. And they were saying, this is not for me. This is not for us. We're in B2B, or we're in a different sector, or whatever the reason. And then had to play catch up with companies who did invest in it. So when you decide that, yes, I'm going to be working, you can call it your personal brand. You can call it working on putting yourself out there more, essentially working on serving the marketing function of your organization, supporting that function. It starts with a few things. It starts with an exercise in introspection of what is your brand really going to be about? What can you be a thought leader in? But also, what else can your brand be associated with beyond thought leadership to create that human connection, because as humans, we connect not only on the basis of expertise, but on the basis of something human.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, I think all too often you don't really want to buy from. I mean, you definitely don't want to buy from somebody that you don't connect with and don't relate with. I mean, it's one thing when you're buying from a big brand like, let's say, Nike. Great, you're buying the shoe that you've tried on that you like the brand, you like what the company might stand for. But for the small business, that's not the same. We're not spending $1 billion a year or millions of dollars a year, even probably on marketing and promoting that brand. So for a small business that's not doing that and isn't a Nike with mass marketing budgets, then this, I guess you're saying you use this sort of branding to supplement whatever marketing you are doing.
Really fuel it. And not only small companies, small, medium, large, especially in the B2B space. Because let's think about it. You're growing a B2B business, right? If you are creating content from your business account, let's say on LinkedIn, how many followers are you going to get that are not already customers, right? Well, how many businesses do you follow on LinkedIn that you're not already a customer of, or a partner, or have some sort of an existing relationship? Not that many, right? And even if you are a customer, you are still likely not following that business account. However, it's much easier to create that followership and get eyeballs as a human being, creating content that's relevant. First of all, you don't have to pay for it. Just by sharing consistently, it pops up in people's feeds. If it's business content, you have to put marketing dollars behind it. That's an expense. And again, mixed results. So you're able to create that attention, that brand awareness, people curiosity, so that then when you talk about your business, there's already a little bit more of a connection than there's something cold. So for B2B specifically, this is becoming the new strategy. We're having marketers from organizations reach out to us now. So not the CEOs, not the business founders only, marketers reaching out saying, can we work together on convincing my boss to become a thought leader, and then B, helping create that content and that visibility together. So marketers, across the globe, especially in B2B companies, are asking for that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really that's really challenging for a B2B company, because there is that personal aspect. And if if your business isn't growing through referrals and you want to grow beyond that, yeah, sure, you do some advertising, great. But then there's this expression which I think is really accurate. If they don't know you, they can't flow you, right? Meaning that if people do business with people that they know and that they trust, and they know that they're going to get a good, if nothing else, they like the person, they believe that person to be competent. And I think that's where it comes in. I don't think we make purchasing decisions on the business side of things unless we believe that the people we're doing business with are competent and we trust and like them. I think that's pretty much it, right? When it comes to making that decision. So that's really where you come in, right? To help with that. Oh, you know me all right. It adds to that, knowing somebody before they even sit down to the meeting. They may have seen their content on LinkedIn. So what other ways do you go about that? How do you go about building somebody's brand? Let's say LinkedIn's a really great one, right? So they put out some content there, and you help them come up with ideas on the consistent content, or how's that work?
Sure. So first of all, I love that you mentioned referrals, because really in any business, what we hope for is more referrals, right? Those close faster, those are higher quality clients. It's already, it's pre-sold. You just have to close the sale, right? Referrals are fantastic. The thing is, clients are not always sitting there thinking about us, right? And asking for referrals, how often, A, can you ask? And B, how can you not make it awkward feeling? So again, what's great is that when you are constantly putting yourself out there, LinkedIn, we're going to talk about in a moment, you're constantly top of mind for somebody with your content. It does fuel those referrals as well, because you're just constantly top of mind. So, if somebody asks, or, if they feel that there's a need for someone else, there's more of a chance they'll mention you. So it does fuel referrals as well. And that's very important. LinkedIn is right now the perfect platform to scale that visibility, brand awareness, and being top of mind, specifically for B2B, but again, across the board. So what you want to do on LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn, you don't need to create any kind of a fancy strategy to boost your following? Sometimes people will ask that. How can I increase my following on LinkedIn? Connect with people. Build a list of relevant people. This is existing clients and prospective clients. You can put your VA to task to just sit there and send invitation requests, not to cold DM email people, because as we know, we all get those, and those are not, our top read messages that we receive. But just connect with people. I am also, a business owner in the geographic area, would love to connect. That's it. If you connect with people, that's how you increase your follower count. Number one. Number two, you create content consistently. You want to be posting on LinkedIn 2 to 3 times a week. This is where I lose most people, because they say, I don't want to be posting more than once a month. What do you mean 2 to 3 times a week? But there are agencies like Brand of a Leader that help. So you want to be posting 2 to 3 times a week, because what that does is, with that type of consistency, you rev up the algorithm and you go to the top of the feed of the people who follow you. Because people who follow you, when they look at their feed, it's not in a timeline order, right? It's whoever algorithm feels is a better fit to show to them. So all of a sudden, your customers and your prospective customers, every time they open LinkedIn, boom, there is Matt talking about something. So you're constantly top of mind. And then if you do an outreach strategy, when you do reach out to people, it's not like, who is this guy? It's like, oh yeah, I think I know this guy, or I've seen him somewhere. People don't always remember what, but it already warms up the lead. So LinkedIn, fantastic for that. What we do for clients is we interview them on a monthly basis on the topics that we determine are necessary. Our interviewers are all trained journalists. So their goal is to not just ask you something surface level. They dig deeper and deeper and deeper for that insight. Really a partner in creating that thought leadership. Then we go and create all the content that you need for LinkedIn for the full month. So it's your thought leadership. We interview you. So there's that accountability and consistency. Then we create the content. You approve it. We go post it for you. It's completely authentic because it comes from you. We don't make anything up, but we create consistency, accountability. It's best practices for writing on LinkedIn. And we have really good writers. So it's also high quality. So LinkedIn, that's the process. Fantastic. And there are other platforms, of course, as well, that help with building that visibility and building that personal brand as well.
No, that's super cool. Because I think that is such a huge challenge for the business owner. You're busy. That's why let's say you have a marketing department. That's their job. Great. I don't have the time to be doing this. An interview, heck, you can do. Everybody can find an hour a month to do an interview, whether it's at lunchtime, over coffee, something. That's not a huge ask. So I think that's a brilliant idea. So you just go through one interview. Is it about an hour? How long does the interview usually take?
It's an hour. So we have every quarter, there's one interview that's 75 minutes. It's called our signature interview. That's with an Emmy Award journalist. We go really, really, really deep. And then the other 2 interviews also with a journalist, but 60 minutes in length. And another thing to add, Matt, the reason that so many organizations work with us versus leveraging their internal marketing teams is that the writing you do for a person is very different than the writing you do for the organization. Marketers think differently. They think of calls to action, sales, hooking to promote. That does not land when we create content as a human being.
Yeah.
Anytime you have any piece of content, so let's say LinkedIn post, if you can copy and paste that to your corporate account, copy and paste, and it would be fine, it's not right for your personal brand. You don't want to do that. And so because marketers are trained differently, that's where we work in tandem, because we want it to sound human. There's no sales pitch. There's no call to action. There's none of that. It's subtle. And it's rooted in thought leadership. So it builds that organically, but it is a very different type of writing.
That's brilliant. So then these posts that you do for a client on LinkedIn, this is just written posts? You'll do like, do pictures matter? Do you add a picture and then that? Is it video and that? I know everything's always changing and people have got, everybody's trying to keep up with the algorithm. But what, as of right now, what's your take on that? Does it not matter? Is it, just text is fine, text and video, text and picture? What's your take on that?
It matters, and the algorithm does change all the time. So right now, video does not perform well on LinkedIn. And a lot of people are shocked to hear that because just maybe 6 months ago, video was the thing. But what's happened is that because of TikTok, because of now Instagram really focuses on video, well, LinkedIn looks for a way to differentiate itself with reason. The video does not do as well. Posts with images do really well. So the post, you don't want it to be lengthy. 150 to 200 words is best practices. And, a lot of people will say, well, but I'm not able to really showcase a lot of my thought leadership that way. It's lacking depth. I want to educate people more. It's a social media post. The goal is to intrigue. The goal is to capture enough of the attention, but it's not an article. So when you write, think of yourself. You scroll when you're on LinkedIn. You're not stopping there and sitting and, grabbing a cup of tea and diving deep into the content, not on LinkedIn posts. When you read a book, when you read an article. So you want it to be shorter, you want it to be punchier, and ideally you do want to have an image. So what we recommend for images is image that has your face in it. It doesn't have to be huge as a headshot. It could be a quote card, with something that you said and just a little thing with your face. But again, it helps recognizability, right? Think of yourself. If you're scrolling and you see the face of somebody that you recognize, you're likely going to pause. If it's a social media card that just looks corporate, you're definitely going to skip it. But if it's a person, you recognize them, or maybe you don't even recognize them, it's more human. Yeah. So we recommend images as much as possible.
So how do you get it's going off of what you said, we're now talking 8 to 12 posts a month on LinkedIn. How do you get 8 to 12 selfie, or obviously you're not talking selfies, right? Or how do you get those 8 to 12 pictures of this business leader who's doing their branding? What's the approach there?
There's a lot we can create, even with the 3 of the same photos, because then we play with them. And yes, we have a graphic designer that works on each client's content. We're the ones that take care of it. So one thing is we really try to get our clients in the habit of taking those pictures wherever they are in contexts that are relevant. So for example, if somebody is looking to get more speaking gigs, we'll make sure that when you are speaking somewhere, you ask someone to take a picture. If you really want to promote client work, we'll take a picture of you being with a client, right? So whatever the goal is, you want to take those pictures. Ideally, yes, at least one photo shoot. A lot of clients don't like hearing the sound of that, but at least one photo shoot where we can get, there you go, right? You relate. At least 2 pictures, because then what we do is we create different social media cards, meaning it can be one of those things you swipe through with, step 1, step 2, step 3 when you're doing something. It can be just one with a quote, a sentence, but then we put that headshot of you there in, little circles, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. So there's a lot we can do with few pictures, but we do encourage our clients to just get into that habit. We work with their assistants. We engage their assistants, please, please, please. So we really hunt for those because pictures do make a big difference.
Now, it's surprising to me, and I know I like to call it a head trash. I know it's my own head trash, right? I feel very not photogenic, maybe photophobic even, right? I'm really bad about it. And I know that, I think, wait, we're in IT and cybersecurity and not on the kind of sexy Apple side of IT, right? So I don't think people want to hear or know about our day to day. And it's funny because you see these accounts online where people are doing the most mundane thing and they have tons of followers. This, what they call it, like day in the life of type of stuff. People actually enjoy that content. And so I think, which is again, mind blowing to me. So it's just, this is not my area of expertise. Obviously I'm not, and just trying to wrap my head around it. I think I'm like, I would like to think I'm like a lot of business owners in that regard, in that I get the idea. It's hard for me to kind of put myself in that position. So having a company that can, somebody who can help me understand that and kind of get it comfortable with being uncomfortable doing those things, I think it would be, really helpful, because without it, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not. I'm going to keep doing what I've always been doing, and I will find another way. But to have that, so, having somebody actually put up the posts and coming up with the ideas of, hey, look, we'll have your assistant take the pictures. Don't even worry about it. Because if I know there's a camera there, I'm going to make some stupid face and it will now not be a photo that you can share. That's just how it works. I don't know. It's something messed up subconsciously. Can't take a good photo to save my life. So I think that's great. So you work with their assistants, marketing people, whomever, to get the job done.
Absolutely. And our goal is to simplify the process as much as possible for you. We're very process oriented. And all we constantly think about is how can we make it simpler for the person, for the thought leader, so that it's as little of the time possible, their commitment, because everybody's so time poor, that it's fun, that the process is fun. So this is really interesting because most clients, when they come to us, really, Matt, they dread it. So most of them are like, yes, I decided, business decision, we had a marketing retreat, I have to do it. When we start working together, they say it's fun. They say they look forward to those calls. And now a few of our clients have called it a form of business therapy. They say, I feel that it's a monthly standing meeting with a shrink, but we talk about business stuff. So it switches from that, I dread it. The reason a lot of people dread it is that first of all, there's a lot of bad advice out there. So for example, one would be just this day in the life, post everything. And not everybody likes that. And not everybody likes coming across that content either. So you're like, I don't want to be that guy that and now I had this coffee and now I'm thinking about this and what I'm working on this month. And it just, for some people, it works because it's authentic. For you, if it's not authentic, you dread it. So we make sure, my byline, my personal byline is stand out, speak up, be radically authentic. It needs to be rooted in authenticity. So before we create any type of content, we have a strategy session where we figure out what would feel comfortable to you, what would feel uncomfortable. So we do need to find something that we're talking about that's not only, let's say in your case, cybersecurity. There needs to be something. But the good news is it doesn't have to be your personal life. A lot of our clients are very private people, but it has to be something. It could be a cause you support. It could be something, you're passionate about. It can be, for some people, it's sports, they're really into sports. We have to make sure it connects to the overarching theme. So it's not random. Today it's cybersecurity, tomorrow it's a football game. So there needs to be some kind of a connectivity, connecting piece. We figure out what that is together. But then our goal is to find the type of content that does not make you feel ridiculous or it's not me. It needs to feel, that's why it's a very personalized work. It needs to feel like it's for you and it is you.
I love it. So what's your maybe typical or kind of ideal client? What's that look like? Who's a best fit for this kind of service?
So number one, Gen Xer, and most Gen Xers don't know that they're Gen Xers. I realized it's a bad marketing play because we've had people reach out say, well, I'm not a Gen Xer, but I really like what you guys have on your website and it really spoke to me. So would you still work with me? And I don't want to tell people that I'm estimating their age category, but I'm I think you're a Gen Xer, so 45 years plus. The reason for that is it is rooted in thought leadership and storytelling. And so as we progress in our careers, there is more thought leadership to dig into, and there's a higher caliber and quality and quantity of stories. So Gen Xers, we like working with people who are humble. We've had a lot of people approach us who are, I don't want to use the wrong word on a podcast.
Not humble?
Not humble. And they're just not right because we are in the business of scaling the reach of somebody's voice and presence. And some people just don't feel for us that we want to be scaling that. So somebody who is humble, somebody who is not in search of the limelight, and has the hesitation, because the impact we create together is just beautiful to have somebody step out of their comfort zone and then go, wow, this is bringing value. And people who do this for the right reasons, we have people who come to us and say, I want to be famous. I want to be the next Andrew Tate. I want to be the next Jordan Peterson. We get that a lot. And we say, well, we're not right for that. We're here for thought. Well, we ask why, right? So why? And if it's because I have a message and I feel that I could tell it in a way that's less abrasive than Andrew Tate, interesting. If there's a message, if there's a reason, there's desire to make an impact, but it's just, well, I feel I too should be famous and should be making money from being famous. influencers exist, not our type of thing. And also people who are looking for a real partner, because we don't do anything transactional. We've had a firm reach out for all of their executives to support all of their executives. And they said, well, here's an example of one. Write us a few posts so we can see how you write. No, that's generic. We don't do that. ChatGPT does that. We don't do that. So somebody who really wants a partner and to gain a whole team, because once you work with us, there's a journalist that interviews you. There's your writer. There's your, sometimes if we do video, your video editor. There's the graphic designer. There's the social media coordinator. So there's all that, support behind the scenes.
I love that. Do you specialize in any particular industries, or is it kind of anybody?
Yes, absolutely no vertical, because it's the person that we focus on a particular type of person versus industry. We have a lot of clients in tech. We have a lot of clients in consumer goods, in professional services, and across the globe. We now have clients in Canada, the US, Europe, now also Brazil, Israel, Middle East. So that is really, really exciting and fun too.
Wow, that is exciting. That's fantastic. So even with that global, I guess because you focus individually on that one and you come up with a custom plan for them, doesn't matter. It's not like you're just, because I think you guys are out of Canada, right? So it's not like you're Canada only and we promote in Canada and we help Canadians do Canadian things. I don't know what that is. But then now globally, that's super cool.
Yeah, and there are definitely nuances, right? So in certain cultures, for example, you don't create content that's self-promotional. In the US, on the other hand, no problem, right? It's a culture that's, more individualistic and more comfortable with expressing certain things. There are some countries where you have to be a little bit more, politically correct, although that's becoming a thing everywhere now, which is quite scary. I mean, where's it not politically correct? But so we have to be conscious of those nuances with different cultures. But in general, no, I mean, the world has become really a global playground, be it creating content for, articles for platforms like Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes Council, those things, or creating content on social media. I mean, it's global in nature. So it's easy for us to expand that way.
That's very cool. So beyond this social media aspect of it, because I think that's one obviously kind of important and large thing that a lot of business owners have a hard time kind of managing and getting, wrapping their head around and then actually implementing. What is there? How do you help beyond the social aspect? What are the other areas? I know you just kind of mentioned them. So I want to kind of dive into that. What are the other areas beyond social?
So first of all, we do not recommend to every client that they go on social media and that they create social media visibility, because we sometimes work with, top executives in corporate environments, and then there's a lot of limitation and regulation around what they can and can't do when they put themselves out there. I think it's important for everyone to figure out what their brand is all about and work on their thought leadership, because you might not want that external presence on social media, but you're speaking to your teams. You're speaking to other people in the industry. You're speaking to other leaders. So what is that thought leadership? What are those sound bites you're associated with? Are you working on continuously, not only working on it, because if you're a subject matter expert, you are, but are you working on bringing it to the surface to be able to communicate it? So we help with that too. That process of interviewing people is perhaps even bigger value than the content we create, because one day ChatGPT is actually going to be good for content creation. It's not right now. Do not use it. You will sound extremely generic, but it will become great. I have no doubt about that. However, the output is only as good as the input. So the value we bring is going deep to unearth those sound bites, that thought leadership from you. So that's number one, might not even be then used for social media, might be used internally within teams. So then social media will help with LinkedIn, Instagram. We manage YouTube as well. We build personal websites. We create visual identity too. We do some really fun stuff with personal logos and all kinds of personal colors and things like that. You were going to ask a question?
I was. Can we dive into that? Because I was like, wait, what? Okay, what? So tell me about that. How does that work?
It is so cool. This is so cool. So not every client asks for it because a lot of our clients will say, well, I will just use the brand guide of my business and we can use that for my social media cards, the colors, etc. And that's fine. But there are some who do want to create something separately because let's say they're also, building their brand not only within the business, but they want to position themselves outside of the business, speaking engagements, writing a book, doing other things like that. Running a podcast and want to have its own branding. So there can be different reasons. So we build personal websites too for those clients, and then we create visual identity. So a personal logo, which can take different forms. For some people, it's an avatar of their face. And that is really neat. So I had a client attend the Global Leadership Conference, and he got recognized by someone else there off the logo avatar that she had seen online, which was mind-blowing. And
that's a good avatar.
It is really good. And our artists, they do everything first by hand. So any logo they create by hand first, like old school, and then create the digital version of it. So sometimes it's that, sometimes it's a signature. So for example, for one of the clients who created a signature, she's an executive coach, but she's also an artist. And the signature we created, she now uses to sign her paintings.
Wow.
So really, really cool stuff. So we do that component for some of the clients as well. And for some, it is more of a logo. If we have worked together on creating some kind of a unique positioning for them, sometimes we'll look at expressing it through a logo. It could be for one of our clients, she owns a wine boutique and a fashion company. So her logo is a combination, so beautiful. I wish I could show it. It is a combination of a stiletto heel and a wine glass. And her name is Kate. So it's in the shape of letter K. Okay, so we do that fun work as well.
Oh, wow. That is super cool.
So cool.
Okay. So now how does that work? Do people engage you and it's kind of a set thing where it's like, oh, this is a monthly subscription, or is it more like engaging a lawyer where, hey, look, you're going to engage whatever services, you'll pay for the services that you need. How do you guys normally work that?
It's a combination depending on the service, but we're very transparent. There's no surprises. All of our pricing packages are on the website. We know that we're one of few personal branding agency, maybe the only one that does that. It's all there. And so there's no surprises. So some services are one-time price because it's a one-time project. It's a la carte. So if we're working on developing your brand strategy, doing a deep dive, going really deep into it, creating a unique positioning for you, figuring out your brand voice, brand tone, we write a founder bio that's so compelling that has made a lot of our clients cry when we read it to them. Even the, guys who are like the tough ones. And then
we're all softies inside. It doesn't matter. It's all a front.
Totally are. And then they come to take a moment and be like, sorry, I just got a little bit choked up. And then I get really emotional. Like, oh, this is great, isn't it? So we create all that. That's a one-time thing. Visual identity, there's one-time cost. Building a personal website, one-time cost. For content creation, it's on retainer. And we also intentionally switch to retainer and auto pay. So if you blow off your meetings and you go MIA, well, it's kind of if you signed up for the gym and you don't show up.
I was just going to say, that's where you're going to show up. You're like, I'm just throwing away money. So I'm going to show up. I love that. That's great.
Like, you're like a personal trainer with that, and not only did you not show up, but kind of the receptionist doesn't care. You didn't show up, but you have a personal trainer who's like, So we bring that piece as well.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed this immensely. I think that so many businesses could benefit from this. I know we could. I can't imagine. Well, you know what? Before are there businesses where it just doesn't make sense? Like, actually, you know what? Now I've got several questions. I can't stop here. So, are there businesses where it just doesn't make sense to brand? Besides the it's not a fit for you. But let's say, are there businesses where it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense?
Well, if it is a business that does not do any marketing, does not do any hiring, because the thought leadership visibility of the leaders really serves the HR function of the business as well. You attract A players who want to work for, top leaders in the field. So if perhaps a business is, winding down, not looking to grow, so they're not hiring, they're not looking to feed the marketing function of the business, and the founder or the CEO is really not looking to do anything else other than that business. Because we do work with a lot of leaders who are not looking to serve the business through building their visibility, but they want to be on board seats. They want to have visibility so that they can impact and inspire, the future generations. They're looking to build legacy. So then on an individual level, maybe for the business, they don't care anymore. The business is maybe preparing for an exit, maybe, is in a different stage, but it could serve them. And one more thing also I want to mention, Matt, because it's a question I get very frequently. A lot of entrepreneurs, business owners look to build a business to exit eventually, right? And a lot of them have a concern that if they build a personal brand, then the business is less exitable because it becomes all about them. And I really want to dispel that myth, because that only happens, well, you've structured your business poorly, has nothing to do with branding, and you are so integrally needed for that business that you are part of it. That's separate, that you work with business coaches on that. But if you think you're building your personal brand, but in fact, you're building yourself as a spokesperson of the business, that's where you tie yourself too tightly. That is why when you're building your visibility, you don't only want to talk about the business and what the business does. Then you do become its spokesperson. Nothing wrong with that. There's no portability beyond it. And well, then it's harder to exit. If you talk about other things as well, people see you as somebody who is zoomed out. So when you pivot or you're looking to sell, it feels less, there's still impact. There's always impact when the founder exits, but it feels less, detrimental because you're perceived as a, complete part of the full marketing department of the business.
No, that's brilliant. That's actually a really important point, because I think a lot of people have that idea that if they build that personal brand, then it's tied to the company. They won't be able to exit, or they're not going to get the kind of multiple they're looking for because it's attached to them, not the business. So that's a great point.
Or they also say, well, then all the clients who come to us, they're only going to want to work with me, and I want them to work with my employees. That is not what happens. Again, if you're only going to be talking about the business, you're the spokesperson. Well, of course, they want to work with, the subject matter expert of the business, right? However, when you talk about other things, what happens to me on a personal, as a personal example, is people will reach out and they say, I know you're too busy, but is there someone on your team I can talk to? And their perception of me being so busy is that I talk about all those different things that I do and that I'm involved in. So it actually has the opposite effect than people often fear.
Nice. I think another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners look for in the marketing side is, what kind of ROI? How do you get an ROI on branding? So I think this is a really big topic for a lot of business owners. How do you respond to something like that?
Very hard to quantify ROI because it's organic, right? So because let's say you're constantly putting yourself out there, when somebody reaches out, is it because of that particular post? Is it because of this particular thing? It's hard to quantify. However, what we do through anecdotal evidence. So for example, a client says, we wrote that post, and then somebody reached out for me to be on a panel at our leading industry conference, or we posted about me speaking somewhere, I got 2 speaking gigs, or higher quality clients. In general, you compare it overall to before and after, right? So if this is the one thing that you changed, what has been the improvement? But the impact and the ROI will be on whatever the goal you're looking to serve. And that's why, again, it's important to have strategy. If you're just posting randomly all over the place, well, what goal was it supposed to serve? Harder to measure. If you say the goal is to focus on serving the marketing function, well, we're going to be showcasing client work and talking about that. If the goal is to serve the HR function and hiring, you're going to talk more about your core values, about your culture, about, shout outs to your amazing team members. You want to become a speaker, well, we're going to start showcasing your speaking a lot more. So it depends on the strategy. We don't want to have a million goals. So one at a time, we stay consistent, and then we'll look, well, has there been a delta? You haven't been doing anything else, but you've seen this improvement. And that's how we do the attribution.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I saw basically the same thing with the podcast. And I went through a lot of the same sort of uncomfortableness, but then it became this really fun, enjoyable thing for me where it's really kind of the highlight of my, day or week, depending on, whatever. But it's really enjoyable. And then on the ROI side, it became really clear that it's changing the public perception, the social credibility, just the visibility. And so then implementing things like you were saying of making sure that you're posting frequently enough on LinkedIn. And I think building those connections, it facilitates the transaction. So people are like, oh yeah, so we got this a new client because they were like, it was the smoothest, easiest because they're like, oh yeah, I saw the podcast, and they were already sold on me and the company and everything beforehand because of the kind of the branding which didn't happen before. I mean, before we had, we're putting ourselves out there wasn't a thing. And so I think that's the only way we can kind of do it. It's a little fuzzy. You definitely know it when you see it, but and I think you're right. You just compare the before and the after numbers. You're like, okay, nothing else has really changed. As long as you're not doing 12 different ad campaigns and 12 different new marketing campaigns that you didn't do before on top of your branding. Now you got too many variables and you can't really tell. That's not a fair comparison. But yeah.
How do you now promote your podcast or the episodes on LinkedIn? How do you repurpose it right now? Maybe I can give you some tips.
All right. So currently, what we do is it's just on LinkedIn. I mean, that's the only place we put it out there. It's out on all the podcast platforms. So you see it on, you name it, Spotify. We're not advertising or promoting it anywhere not on YouTube, though it's there. This recording's there. So what we do is on LinkedIn. Ideally, we will have, and I say ideally because we don't always do it. I like to take little video snippets of an episode and have like a sound bite. And then we'll do a post about that episode before it comes out, then when it comes out, and then after it comes out, we'll repurpose and we'll have another sound bite. So I like to have 3 and kind of mix those up for each episode. Does that always happen? No. Sometimes it's just the announcing the episode and sharing it there. But that's the way we've been going about it. And I'd love to hear your take on how we can improve on that very probably shoddy approach.
Sure. No, it's a good approach. The only thing is, as I mentioned, video is not doing as well right now on LinkedIn. So that's the only thing. So I would recommend supplementing it with written post. So written post, and then, it can be a screenshot of, let's say, this episode, just a screenshot of us talking together. Just make sure your guest looks good and, we both look engaged. And then you would write, little, here are my 3 key takeaways. I recommend you watch it. And then ideally, and the jury is out. Some people say not to include links to anything in the post because it lowers engagement or visibility of the post. Some people say it doesn't matter anymore. We still, more often than not, will stay on the safe side and put it in comments. Want to watch the whole interview, head over to YouTube and put the link there. You might have seen people do it. That's why they do it.
I have, and I didn't know why. I'm like, why isn't that? Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and just make it a clean post. So you don't want to be, tagging me, tagging Brand of a Leader, tagging whoever else, tagging your company. You do it all at the end. Because you might have seen it too when you read it and it's just like all these blue things and it's just not right. And you're just like, this feels promotional. So I would just say, Marina, expert, now this was great, amazing. I'm so excited. Here are the 3 takeaways that blew my mind. Then on the bottom, you can tag me, tag Brand of a Leader, tag your business, tag whoever else. It's just a cleaner read.
And now are you saying at the bottom of the post or in the comments?
Bottom of the post, just bottom of the post, shorter rather than longer. Hashtags, we're playing with not including any hashtags anymore on LinkedIn. Not like there's a big hashtag strategy. You're going to do some 1, 2, 3, but not like 25, because again, it just looks spammy and messy. And then image and then comments, checkout. You can still play with the snippets and then compare, are those also viewed to have as many impressions as the text one? But the text one, I bet, is going to perform better.
Wow. Okay. So it's like you've seen my posts, and I appreciate the feedback because mine were now I think they're pretty much garbage. So I'm going to go and this one we will do that way. It's funny because so I got into this because a buddy of mine was he came to me about 3-4 years ago and he's like, hey, I'm doing this podcast, and he's got this awesome podcast. Todd Taskey. He's got this podcast called The Second Bite, and it's about buying and selling businesses. So he's a business broker. And so when his episodes, you're like in the middle of the deal, you're hearing about it. It's fantastic. It's like being in the room and you're hearing how these business leaders, how they're structuring the deals, and you're learning all these tips and tricks, and it's freaking fascinating. I'm like, that's awesome. And he's like, you got to start a podcast. I'm like, nobody wants to hear about my, geeky little business. He's like, okay. So you fast forward of like 3 years, he is, tripled his business. I'm sorry, fast forward 2 years, he's tripled his business. He's like, this podcast thing's really working. You should really do it. I'm like, tripled your, okay, tell me more. And so, it's really funny because the guys at Rise 25, they're the ones we use to kind of put the whole thing together. Their suggestion was very much the same, at least in the picture. And I'm like, I like video. And so I'm always posting the video and doing it my way. And I love what you've just said, even though it's not the way I went about it. There's a lot to change there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that affects kind of the distribution. So I know we got to do, as you said, 3 posts a week. So we'll get on that. Make sure we do 3 religiously on it, because we have not been very religious about our posting.
Most people aren't.
Yeah, but those are great tips that anybody can use, for their content. So that's, I think, invaluable. Thank you.
Well, 2 things to say. One is, so many people will say to us, well, but I can, to be honest, though, I can do my own LinkedIn post. Why do I need you guys? To which I say, of course you can. Like, really, it's with best practice. It's not rocket science. But so do you? Yeah. So the question is not I can. The question is do you? Because we can also work out at home, right? But then ideally a gym will help and a personal trainer will really help. That's number one. Number two, I also don't want you to leave this conversation feeling that you're doing everything wrong. Because, I had this eye-opening moment where I was sitting at dinner with someone, and one of the people asked another person. I had delivered a presentation at that, Entrepreneurs Organization chapter event. And so this other person said, well, so what's Marina's presentation like? And I'm like, oh, I want to know. And she goes, well, essentially, she just makes you feel like everything you've ever done as far as your visibility is completely wrong. You need to leave and rethink everything. Everything is wrong, and you need to do everything different. I'm like, no, I don't want it to be this full doom and gloom.
Hey, the truth hurts sometimes. That's just, look.
Hurts sometimes.
It is what it is. I'm okay with that. I do a lot of things wrong. That's how I learn. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Marina, this has been great. I know we're running out of time. So if you could tell the good folks watching and listening where they can find out more about you and Brand of a Leader.
So we have a really awesome website. We get a lot of compliments on it. So I really recommend that your audience checks it out. So Brand of a Leader, so brandofaleader.com. And I am very active on LinkedIn. I, for a long time, was not so happy with my unpronounceable last name until I started building my visibility and realized that there is no other Marina Byezhanova out there. So if you punch my name into LinkedIn, you will find me. Nobody else comes up. So if somebody's looking to, just kind of not necessarily work together immediately, but get tips and learn things and build more of that human connection, let's connect on LinkedIn.
I love it. Okay, well, thanks so much for coming on, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.